Hello, welcome to today's episode of the Finding Proof Show. I'm in Sydney today. If I step back a little bit from the camera, you might get a little bit of a view behind me of the lovely Sydney cityscape. You can even see the Centrepoint Tower if the lighting's right. So welcome today. I'm coming to you from Sydney because I'm here for the Australian Psychological Society Congress, and I'm speaking today. I'm giving two presentations today, and I will be live streaming. I'm hoping I'll be live streaming both of those presentations this afternoon. So if you're interested to hear about how I go about building a private practice team, you can check that out this afternoon. And if you're interested also to hear about my thoughts on building a rural psychology practice, you can hear that presentation this afternoon as well. But today, Finding Proof live show, I'm actually going to get a little bit uncomfortable and get real here and talk about, I'm calling myself out. So a couple of weeks ago, you will have seen the episode, if you've been following, which has actually attracted a bit of viewing, which is the episode that was quite an emotional episode where I talked about my team, I talked about the emotions behind being a business owner and how it feels, I guess, to watch people come into your team full of excitement that you feel as a business owner for new team members, and the sadness that you feel when team members ultimately leave to pursue new adventures. The reason I'm calling myself out is I think when I recorded that live show episode, I was still very much in the hurt phase of my emotional journey, or the hurting phase, I should say, of that emotional journey. And I think when I look back on that video, you can quite clearly see that it was quite emotional for me. Through that video, I reckon I mentioned probably 3 or 4 times how excited I was and am for the new adventures that my departing team members are embarking upon. Now, when I look back at that episode and watch it again, I hear myself say the word excited, but I don't believe it. If I'm trying to watch from a third person perspective, there's not a lot of excitement behind me saying the word excited. And so I've sat with that for a good couple of weeks, and I thought, what's that about? Because on a very real level, I want to be excited for my new team, my departing team members. But a couple of weeks ago, I wasn't quite there yet emotionally. So on a rational level, I was wanting to be excited for them. But on a very real emotional level, I wasn't quite there yet. So I've sat with that this past couple of weeks, and I've thought, okay, in this journey of shedding the skin of our current team members, if you like, letting some people go, welcoming new people on board, it's been a very emotional journey. I've gone through several variations of emotion around what people are, where they're going, what they're doing, those feelings that come with them leaving my team. And when I think about that word excited, I'm very curious to know how their individual journeys are going to pan out. I am really curious, genuinely curious, and genuinely inquisitively excited, I guess, for where they're going and what they're going to do next. But it's taken me a good couple of weeks of reflecting on how hollow those words sounded when I said them. I meant them on an intellectual level, but I wasn't quite there yet emotionally, and it's taken me a good couple of weeks of reflection to really figure out what that was about. So there's been a running joke in my team, perpetuated by a former admin team member of mine, fabulous young woman, who is going on to very exciting things, and I am very excited about her future. And the joke that ran in our team was that when somebody left, we would joke, "You're dead to me. I hope you fail." And when I think about the childhood that I had, no disrespect to my parents, they did their best, but they were very, very young. And as a child, there was a lot of toing and froing, being sent from one parent to the next, to my grandparents. I've talked a little bit about this before. And as a kid, that gets perceived as rejection and abandonment. And so for me as a grown-up, and especially as a psychologist, I have to sometimes sit with my little girl buttons being pushed when I get a whiff of rejection or abandonment. And I have to really be very careful not to get pulled back into that frightened child mind and that hurt child mind. And I have to really be very careful not to lash out or act out from a hurt child perspective. So when I look back at that video from a couple of weeks ago and I detected that there wasn't a ring of truth emotionally to those words about being excited for my team, I realised that my rejection and abandonment buttons were being pushed, and I realised I had to do something about that. So on a very practical level, I've actually had to sit with myself and have some really good, give myself a good talking to a couple of times now about making a decision to buy in to the emotions that I want to feel in the current scenario. I've talked before about being a big picture thinker, and I talk about that a lot from a practical level, like a business direction level and business planning. But sometimes I feel I need to, or we all need to, look at the big picture emotionally of what we want to be feeling in a situation and acknowledging the struggle that is sometimes involved in getting to that point. So for me, I wanted to be excited for the journey that my departing clinicians are going on. And there's an element of authenticity or a risk of inauthenticity underpinning all of that, because one of my core values professionally is mentoring mental health professionals. That means helping them develop, helping them grow, helping them make this gigantic leap into the next step of their careers. How can I authentically be pursuing that core value if I can't feel that for my own team? So I really have had to sit and think about that and really just reflect on how I want to feel for them, and then what action can I take to bring myself to the party so that I can authentically, not cynically, not in any kind of overdoing sense, but how can I authentically feel excitement for their next journeys? How can I feel wonder about where they're going to head? How can I feel excited for all the emotions that they're going to be embarking upon as they take another big, brave leap? Remembering that some of my team have been with me since students, which means that some of them, working with me was their first job as a psychologist. So it's a really big challenge for them to grow beyond that and to move into something else. So I have had to decide, I've had to choose, and this is a really important point. And it's hard, it's really, really hard sometimes when it is an emotional issue. That we have the power to choose how we feel. We have the power to decide how we want to respond to a situation. Now, if I had allowed myself to retreat into that hurt child, that hurt, abandoned, rejected headspace, it would have become a very toxic place for me to be sitting while I'm trying to navigate my business through this major phase of change. If I chose to allow that hurt and that fear and that scarcity mindset that I've talked about before, if I chose to allow those to colour my thinking too much, it would ultimately be damaging for me, for my team members as they leave. I want them to look back positively on their experiences with me. It would ultimately be damaging for how they leave, for how they move into their next roles. Even on a bigger picture sense, it might have an impact on how they view working in private practice. So for me it's been a very valuable experience in walking my talk, because I do talk a lot about deciding and choosing. We can choose fear, we can choose growth, we can choose generosity, we can choose compassion, or we can choose anger, or we can choose jealousy. You know, we can choose feelings if we stop and are mindful of how we're feeling, if we're mindful of what's going on for us, what buttons are being pressed, and whether or not we choose to let that dictate terms for us, especially as leaders. I think as leaders, we really need to be honest with ourselves, acknowledge the buttons that are being pushed, give a little bit of a nod to that. Okay, yep, I respect the journey that my child self went on. I respect the journey that my parents went on. There was difficult emotions all around, but I can't afford to dwell in that as an adult, as a business owner, as a leader. I have to choose, I have to decide to keep that big picture in mind. So when I talk about my team and I talk about being excited for their next steps, I'm now feeling it. So first thing this morning, I actually saw a job ad that a couple of my departing team members might have been interested in. So I forwarded it to them, and I hope they go for it, and I hope they get that, because that would actually be a great career move for them to pick up that work. And it was an ad for multiple positions, so there's no competition there. So I'm now feeling it. I'm now feeling excited about the farewell drinks we're going to have in a bit over a week's time. We're having this big mass celebration for this mass departure of team members, and it will be emotional. It will be difficult to a point. But we're now at a stage where everything's out in the open. So everything's been brought to a head. The people who are leaving have been open and talked to me openly and honestly about where they're wanting to go with their careers, where they're ready to move to. They're ready now to make changes in their careers. Keeping in mind, as I've said before, a number of them have been with me for a long time. So it's almost like we've not only ripped the Band-Aid off with acknowledging that people are leaving, we've ripped the Band-Aid off with acknowledging how painful and emotional that has been. I've personally turned a corner, and I'm sharing that with you because I want you to be able to experience that in your own difficult circumstances, recognizing that you have a choice about how you feel about certain things. You can choose those more toxic reactions. You can choose to be stuck there. Or you can make a conscious decision to mindfully step into your values and your integrity and grab hold of that with both hands, looking at the big picture of where you want this all to end. So I am very excited about where my team is going. There are some exciting opportunities on the horizon for us. There are some exciting people looking to join our team. We've got new team members who I'm very excited about what they're bringing into our, the services we offer our community. I've just launched a graduate program, brand new program for us to be offering, and I'm so excited about that because it formalizes this idea that people come in and they leave, and making it okay, making it not an emotional thing, making it not about abandonment and rejection, making it part of a formalized step in their career. Come work with me. Come be on this graduate program with me, and I will train you up, teach you everything you need to know to go to the next level in your career, which might be staying on with us. And it might not be too, and that's okay. So that's where I'm at the moment. Hey Leslie, I can see you've left a comment. I've got no problem doing with team members who are on a professional growth journey. I love keeping in touch and hear what they do next. People who are simply chaotic and can't keep commitments are a different story. Yeah, I think that is a different story. It's really hard to be magnanimous for people who don't act in their own integrity. And what I can say is part of the reason why this has been such a difficult journey for my team is because everybody is trying to act from integrity. They like me, they respect the work that I'm doing, they know that it's disruptive by leaving the team, but we've had a number, like a perfect storm, if you like, of reasons why people are leaving my team at this time. So, we've had a new player come on the scene that's offering something really exciting for early career psychs. We've got, my former practice manager was a major emotional anchor for my team, and so her departure for that new practice, I guess, was almost as chaotic emotionally for many of my team members as if I had announced I was leaving. And that's taken me until probably the last week to realise that, in an honest way, that her role in my practice was huge emotionally, practically, all of that stuff. She was the glue that held things together when I couldn't be present, because of all the things that I'm doing. So everyone in my team who is leaving has my blessing. They've actually got really good reasons. So there's one clinician's been with me 6.5 years. It's time. It's okay. She's allowed to move on, And like I said before, some of them have been with me since they were interns. They were students. And, they need to grow. And as a leader, I think sometimes, I remember having a teacher when I was in high school. And no, I wasn't even in high school. I was final year of primary school. He was this old school man. He would, when he was angry, he would turn his back on the class and he'd put his hands up on the blackboard and bash his head on the blackboard, bemoaning the end to capital punishment in schools. And he was bald, so he'd turn around with this big red mark on his forehead. But he taught us about the notion of in loco parentis, which meant that, teachers are in the place of parents when you're at school. And I think leaders, without wanting to get all maternalistic about it, I think leaders in a way are also in loco parentis. Now, what I mean by that isn't that we're there to mollycoddle, we're not there to mother people, but we are there to help people establish roots in their career and develop wings so that they can grow and they can fly and they can soar off to their next direction. It's emotionally difficult. Just as for parents, it's emotionally difficult when your kids are ready to leave home. It's a transition. It's a painful transition sometimes. And at the moment, having it happen, with a large number of people in a very close space of time has been, I was going to say traumatic, but that's overplaying it. There's no trauma here. It's just been very confronting for me and for them, because they've had to sit with knowing that this has been emotional for me and for the other team members. They've had to sit with knowing that this has all, as a mass thing, has created instability. But I hope that they've watched me really try hard to be dignified, to be, sure, I've had my emotional reactions, but I hope that they've watched me come around to that level of excitement that I can now see in myself for their next journeys. I think I can't expect people to think I've got any integrity at all if I can't reach that place for my own team members, when that's what I'm teaching all of you, is how to find proof, how to find that you've got what you already need. You've already got it. The things that you need, the courage that you need, the confidence that you need, the skills, the education, you've already got all of that to take you to the next level in your career, in your leadership journey, in your life. That's what I'm all about. That's what this show is all about. So how can I do that with any sense of integrity if I can't celebrate that in my own team? So that's where I've got to. Leslie's saying, lovely to hear. Thanks, Leslie. I really appreciate having you here live, joining me today. So, look, I am keeping you up to date with this journey as it unfolds. There's more to talk about in terms of how it's all happening, because we're now on the verge of October, and October is the month where a number of the people who are leaving will actually leave, so they haven't finished up with me yet. And so that will be its own little journey, but I suspect that October will also be the month where we have some yet to be confirmed and yet to be identified new team members join. So, with the launch of the graduate program, I cannot believe the excitement that has met in the psychology community, because I think within less than 24 hours of announcing it, that Facebook post had reached 3,000 people. Unbelievable. And within a few hours of having done a live stream about it, talking about that graduate program the next day, within a few hours, that video itself had reached about 1,000 people. So there's a lot of interest. So I'll be very curious to see who has the courage and the confidence to throw their hat into the ring to join us in our graduate program, which you can see the grin on my face. I'm really excited about this. And so, you know my mantra, change is inevitable, growth is a choice. And so, I'm in a much happier space now that I've been able to embrace that sense of excitement for my team members. But like I said, you've got to choose that. You can't expect that to just come. You can't expect that to automatically happen. You've got to make that happen for yourself. And once you do, once you can step authentically into how you want to be feeling as changes happen in your business, as you are mindfully able to engage in the actions that support you emotionally to be feeling that, it gets easier. It just does, because you're moving further away from those fear-based toxic emotions that are pulling at your ankles, trying to trip you over. That wanting people to fail. I don't want anyone to fail. I've never wanted anyone to fail. That's not been part of my thinking. But you know how we get stuck in those really nasty, hurt headspaces and rejected headspaces, and that can lead to all sorts of unpleasant, toxic. Look at me screwing up my face when I talk about it. It makes me, it's real. It's real. You feel muddy when you're stuck in those feelings, and progressing through that takes time. I reckon it has taken me a good couple of weeks to process through that. Like, I had to reach the stage where I recognized that I wasn't authentically in the emotions I said I wanted to be feeling, and I've really had to consciously work on that. So Leslie's saying, when multiple departures happen at a time when we're already under the pump in our own work or personal lives, it can be hard to rise to the occasion, and recruitment is so time consuming. I think this is so true. So, the video where I talk about emotion, acknowledging that bosses and leaders, we have feelings, and we have feelings around people leaving our teams. I talked about how in the space of 12 months, there was a photograph of, I think, about 18 people at a team function that we had a bit over 12 months ago. Now, 12 of those 18 people have either left or are on the way out of my team. Obviously, there are more people who've joined since, but that's a hard photo emotionally for me to look at. It's sad to say goodbye to 12 people in 12 months, within 12 months. That's really hard emotionally. And of course, I have a life behind the business. I've got small kids. I've got, a family that has, whatever issues going on behind the scenes. There might be work stress for some family members. There might be health issues for some family members. There might be financial pressures, and so on. I think that sometimes we expect a bit too much of ourselves to be able to just sail gracefully through the turbulent waters of life plus business. And I think we need to be really honest with ourselves when we catch ourselves expecting that that's what we're capable of doing, because it's not realistic and it's not fair. We wouldn't expect anybody else to do that. All right, so thank you, Leslie, for your very, very sharing comments today, because it has been a conversation worth having. The feedback that I've been getting through talking about this, there's a couple of main themes. So I've had some practice owners, some other mental health practice owners reaching out to me, talking about how they have felt when team members leave. And a lot of practice owners or business owners will talk about the energy. Like you say, Leslie, recruitment is time consuming. It's also exhausting emotionally. And then training and trying to think of what are the things that people need to know to come up to speed in my team. That's time consuming, and it's also emotionally draining. And then to invest all of that into people and then for them to leave, sometimes that can leave a bitter taste in our mouth. So if we expect gratitude, we're probably going to be, I think there's gratitude and there's gratitude, right? So people are leaving my team and they are thanking me for the opportunity that they've had to grow within my team. They're thanking me for the experiences they've had. They're thanking me for the positive experiences they've had as part of my team. I love that sort of gratitude. But gratitude shouldn't be a ball and chain. They shouldn't be feeling that they have to stay to demonstrate how grateful they are if they're ready to move on. I wouldn't want them to. That wouldn't make for a very happy team anyway. So I think one of the emotional traps that I've fallen into with this whole abandonment, rejection thing, series of buttons, if we like, is realizing that I had linked loyalty to those buttons. So unwittingly. So on an intellectual level, I knew that people would move on eventually. I knew that people would grow and would have a time where they would fly off in a new direction. But somehow along the way, loyalty had got tied up with rejection. So if people were leaving, it was pushing the rejection button, and that was pushing my buttons around expectations around loyalty. Now, loyalty isn't unreasonable to expect in a team, but loyalty manifests in many ways. It manifests in ways of treating each other with respect, of having open communication about what your plans are, about respecting and trusting each other so that when you know you're ready to move on, you can have that conversation openly. And that's where we've got to. So there's no disloyalty in my team. You know, the people who are leaving, I do not, now that I've consciously weighed that up, I don't see disloyalty, I see growth. But like I say, took me a lot of work and self-reflection to really acknowledge where there was an inner conflict for me, because on some of those elements there was an intellectual understanding of that, but there was still this hurt child feeling deep inside. Interestingly, last night and this morning, didn't wake up with that ball of anxiety in my chest. And I've only just realised that now. So I think yesterday, what was yesterday? What day is it? Yesterday was Wednesday. So it was Monday and Tuesday that I sort of wrapped up some conversations with some team members who, are going to be moving on. And that left me feeling at peace. And that then led to these recognitions of emotions that I've just been talking about today. And I've just realised it set me free from that ball of anxiety too. Because a lot of that was worrying about what was going on in other people's minds, because I hadn't yet had the opportunity to have an open conversation with a couple of them. Now that that's happened and we're all on an equal footing and we're all on a open and mature understanding of where we all stand, and we're all acting from a place of dignity and integrity, it's like we can all move on. Now that's what you want, isn't it? Right. Now I'm really going, because I do have to go across the road. Where am I going? I'll show you where I'm going. Come here. I'm going over, if I go this way, I'm going to this glass building over here. So that's the International Convention Centre in Sydney. This is Darling Harbour behind me. Lucky view, eh? I tell you what, I've got the smallest room in the world, but I've got a lovely view of Darling Harbour. So I will be at the International Convention Centre there doing my presentations this afternoon, and I'll be live streaming those. So if you want to catch those, you can, or if you want to catch up with them later, they'll stay on this page and they'll be available for you to view later on. Thank you very much. You may have noticed, if you've been listening to the podcast, that I haven't caught up with podcast episodes. While all of this has been unfolding, sadly, I have not had time to clone myself. But I'm hoping while I'm here in Sydney, I may actually find time to actually record a couple of podcast episodes. I've also got a surprise planned for Saturday, a live stream. There's going to be a fun live stream on Saturday. So I'm not going to tell you what that's about, because that's going to actually put me outside my comfort zone. But I'm actually excited about that, because it's going to be a lot of fun. So have a great day, whatever you're doing. I'm about to shoot off now to the conference, and I will see you all as I live stream later on today, and I'll see you again for the live show next week. Thanks for joining me live, and for those catching up later, look forward to seeing any comments and questions that you've got in the comment section, and I'll get back to you on those. Bye for today.